PJNet Live on Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. here on the East Coast, January the 7th. We are ready to roll with Ben Cooper's first of his monthly appearances. Here on PJNet Live, we have a background image, bumper rolling. We'll switch to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to PJNet Live. Those of you who are with us in the PJNet Live chat room, I welcome you in a very special way. You are part of the PJNet family. The fellowship is great. In our chat room, if you're not part of that, if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, get your laptop or desktop and get yourself over to patriotjournalist.com. It says enter here. Come join us. Have some fun. I hope you like our, do you like that honeycomb and the beekeeper himself is here he will be joining us on the first Tuesday of every month. And I think he said he's going to do the warm up for Del Didway, who'll be here at the bottom of the hour. Welcome, Ben Cooper from the great state of Pennsylvania, where you are a keeper of bee.
Yeah. I am.
Is that a hobby or is that a business for you?
A little bit of both. Sideliner. I teach beekeeping class. I started teaching at the local community college 2011. Teach 2 classes a year in the spring and the fall, and there's always people wanting to get into the business. And I started as a 4-H project when I was a teenager, and it's therapy to me. So.
How do the bees feel about it?
Depends. You might ask them on a day like today when we got 3 inches of snow. If I go in there and open up a box, they're not going to be happy.
Well, yeah, that's how I feel when I get out of bed. It's kind of cold. Get back under the covers and, enjoy.
Yeah, it can be cold out, but I found that their stingers still work at 20 degrees.
Above zero? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we can do that. And, Ben, you're actually, this is your first program on the air live, but you're not a stranger to the PJNet chat room. Let's see, we crossed paths up at the Ohio Christian Writers Conference, right?
That's right.
And you were there giving away samples of and folks, you'd have to have been there. It'd say, thank you, did you make this? And you always you get that question often, I can tell, because your answer was very prepared.
Right.
Did you make the honey?
No, I stole it from the bees. They make the honey, I just take it from them.
That was great. Well, Ben, you have some things you would like to share tonight. We kind of talked briefly earlier in the green room. God's providence is all around us if we'll just pay attention, but you had an encounter not long ago. Share that with us.
Yeah, and, I really appreciated Doug Carter's message last night with especially going after the one and then leaving the 99, bringing that into one of the parables of Jesus. But most of the people that are connected, I can't assume that everybody has written a book that is on PJNet, but most of them have that writer connection with them. Those in the chat room, those that have been on your programs. And I wrote a book, and I wanted to share what some of the benefits that you get. You think the journey is done when you put the pen down and it goes to print, and then you hold your book for the first time in your hands. And to be honest, the journey is just beginning, because if God's prompted you to write a book, there's so much more out there. So in the summer, a friend of mine bought 2 copies of my book. He gave it to a worker of his, co-worker, that lives in Annapolis, Maryland, and I'm about 3 hours away from there. But I encourage all writers, if you write a book, give a connection somehow so your writers can get back to you and give you some input if they like the book. The best joy a writer can get is when somebody gets a message back and say, hey, that book spoke to me. I really got something out of it. I liked it. And that's what happened with this guy from Annapolis. I'd never met him, but he got in touch with me and said, I really liked your book. And so, yeah, that kind of strokes you a little bit and makes you feel good. But he said, brought it to a different level after a couple conversations through email. He said, I'd like to invite you down. And actually, the gift of, he wanted to give us the gift, my wife and I, of going to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. And so it was a week before Christmas, and he was off work. I'm retired. I said, whatever, as long as it doesn't crowd Christmas too much. But we decided on a time. I was able to go down, and he asked if I would speak at his church and at a midweek service, and right close to the Bay Bridge in Annapolis. And so Sonia and I went down, we drove. And the sidebar is he has a very unique Bible collection. And when the Museum of the Bible opened up, he really started going there, volunteering, helping out. And he even has some Bibles that they don't have. But it took about 2.5 hours for Sonia and I to go through his collection. He showed us his collection. He wants to write a book, so he's priming me for some questions that, as a newbie to the scene, and showing us these Bibles. And I got to tell you, I've never seen a real copy of the 1611 King James version of the Bible, and he had a he version of the Bible. Did you know, Coach, that there's a he and a she version of the Bible?
No.
1611.
I didn't know the Bible had gender.
Well, and I'll probably get into that in a little bit, but long story short, a complete stranger responded of my email in the back of the book, invited my wife and I to his place, speak at his church. I figure, if somebody wants me to come speak at their church, they can't be all that too bad, and stayed overnight. The next day, we were scheduled to go to the Museum of the Bible. And so I gave a talk to the people that were there, and somebody asked, where do you live? Where are you from? There's more trees and more open space than houses where I live. I don't have a ranch like JD has. I have more head of animals than JD because in the summer each hive has about 50,000 bees in it.
You're cheating.
If you're counting by the head. But I told him, I said, the closest town is Cumberland, Maryland. And so, oddly enough, a younger guy, maybe close to 30, said, I live in Cumberland. I'm thinking, maybe a different Cumberland, and people get Columbia, Maryland mixed up. And I said, Cumberland, Maryland, like Western Maryland? He said, yeah. And here he was there visiting his mom. And long story short, as Doug shared, you kind of get connected with somebody that you never expected. I never expected to see somebody that had a connection to, and invited him to our church, and he showed up with his dad the next Sunday at our church in Cumberland, Maryland, which was a pleasure to have him there. And he was glad to be there and see Sonia, my wife, and I, and enjoy that. But the little things that God leads you to by just answering his call of writing a book. Now, that's not a little thing, but then responding and going and agreeing to step out of your comfort zone, going to a stranger's house, speaking in a church. So that little thing, I connected with what Doug Carter was saying last night of God directing. I typed in the chat room last night that I think God must have broke Doug's bathtub in order for him to go to meet somebody else. And I really think God does that. So that was just unique to be able to see that person just 2 days later worshiping with us in our church. And I appreciate those side benefits that you never see coming when you're busy trying to meet a deadline or fill a page with pen and ink. And I'm just blessed with that. So I do want to share, if you have any questions about that, Coach, but I'll share a little bit too about the Museum of the Bible because it's a fantastic place to visit.
Well, I think your remarks you made initially, I wonder how many writers, have a vision of writing a book and they think that the publishing, the printing, of the book is the end zone. You've scored your touchdown. And as I am learning, connecting with so many writers and authors, no, that's a first down. That is a beginning on a journey. Yes, you're moving the page, but if you think that you're just going to sit back and cash royalty checks, you got another thing coming, right?
Yeah. If you're writing, and Cal says this in conferences in Ohio, if you think you're going to write a book and everybody's going to stumble over themselves on Amazon to come get your copy and become rich and famous, that's probably not going to happen. It does happen. Maybe the guest that's following me tonight kind of had some experience like that, hit the ground running pretty fast. But some of us, it's not all about being on a bestsellers list. It's being answering the call that God had put on our hearts. My call was 24 years ago to write a book, and I started on it. Actually, one of the things that I wrote is exactly what it was in 1996. I hadn't changed.
No.
The last thing, but life gets in the way, Coach. I had cancer twice, and the second time drove me to writing instead of worrying, and it allowed me to fulfill. And God kind of hit me on the side of the head and said, "Didn't I ask you to write a book? Aren't you kind of forgetting about that?" And instead of worrying and being consumed with my health issues, I wrote and was able to accomplish a lot more. I'm thankful God brought me through both cancers, but evidently my journey wasn't done.
Well, for the record, folks, if you're an aspiring writer out there, it doesn't take 24 years to write a book. Ben did it. He was able to stretch it out to that. But no, if you're like 70 years old and God's calling you to write a book, go ahead and do it. Okay, it's all right.
There are those people that do that NaNoWriMo mode that write a book in the month of November. I'm not ready to take on that challenge yet. So,
well, fortunately, I don't write, but I really I praise God that you talk about these providential circumstances. You set out to do one thing, and then you don't even know. We make our plans, but God orders our steps.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and I've shared this before, so if you've heard it, just please indulge me. I went to the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference to get some film, some video footage of Michelle Medlock Adams, who wanted me to produce a video for her to help her get more speaking engagements. That's why I went. But when I got up there, God just opened so many doors. I can also tell you this, Ben. It wasn't that long ago that if you would have come here to our chat room at patriotjournalist.com, you would have found myself and Sunbelt Girl and Hazards 4. And this went on and on and on and on. And thank God that Sunbelt Girl and Hazards 4 hung in there when no one else did. But yet, something magic happened through the providence of God. When I got up there, I met you. Well, we met at the Ohio conference.
Right.
But God intersects our paths. But at the same time, you have to be willing to take those steps in faith. There has to be some risk tolerance. You said that you had dodged cancer not only once but twice. Is that correct?
Twice.
And how did that impact you?
First time was life-threatening. The second time was more life-changing than threatening, but nobody wants to hear the C word once, let alone twice. Mm-hmm. So for 2 days after the second diagnosis, I worried, fretted, thought, God, I had my chance, and let somebody else have it this time. And you know what? I think those words set in on me. As Christians, there's nothing that says why should we be exempt from having cancer or having it twice. It's a great feeling to hit 5 years cancer free until that second diagnosis comes, and it just wipes away everything. So it's tough to go through, but I probably might cause you to pass out if I told you all the things they did the first time. Second time, a robot did the work, operated on me. So the hardest time is the 3 months between diagnosis and surgery. Lots of time, and you want cancer out of you as quick as possible. So writing was really a therapeutic tool for me. And once I got started, it's just my work limited me, and so the winter months is some downtime. So I just wrote and wrote and wrote while I was recovering from the second cancer, and then waited till the next winter and had about 3 or 4 months that I could write, and finally finished it up, and it's been a blessing. I can't thank God enough for all that He's allowed for me to have a book put out and have people respond. I want to share a couple things about the Museum of the Bible, which is really great. And even the providence of when we went, this guy that took us, he had been there 17 times, so he pretty much knew his way around the museum. And so he gave us a personal guided tour. And normally you have to wait on the streets of downtown DC to get in the museum because the line is that long.
Really?
There was no line. Friday before Christmas, people were thinking about Christmas. There was more security and more staff workers in the museum than there were people looking at the museum. And I found that if you get a chance to go, you gotta stay. There's movies and films and lots of things to look at, but the fourth floor has all the historic Bibles that you can see. My wife found one called, you'll get a kick, I'll wait till you put your coffee cup down so you don't laugh while I think.
But, let me swallow it because, go ahead.
Yeah. She said, come here and look at this. This is called, from 1500, it was the Wicked Bible. And I said, why? She read it. She said, in the 10 Commandments, they had a misspelling, and it said, "Thou shalt commit adultery."
Oh,
and they tried to
well,
get them all back.
There's one commandment that we've all that seems to have been kept.
Well, but it said, "Thou shalt commit," so they called it the Wicked Bible. They tried to get them all back, and they weren't able to. People were holding on to them, even back then in the 1500s. But just like I said, the King James Version 1611, the original, was considered a he Bible because in Ruth, on a certain passage in Ruth, it referred to Ruth as he instead of she. And so they quickly made a second version that changed that. So at the Museum of the Bible, you see side by side under glass a King James 1611 Bible that's considered a he Bible and a 1611 King James Version of the Bible that's considered a she Bible. And so there's just so many interesting things that are there. I did want to show the chat room and show people something that I felt was really interesting. They showed Bibles from a lot of different places. I ended up buying one online, and I'm going to hold this up to the camera and let you see. It's called the Brick Bible. And Coach, tell me if you can tell what this is.
The Brick Bible, an old... no, you got me.
It's Legos. It's a graphic novel. I have one's the Old Testament, one's the New Testament, and I have graphic novels. Some guy spent and made 1,500 basically photos of the Bible with Legos and took pictures of them like a graphic novel, and 1,000 in the New Testament. So, I mean, they've got Bibles on top of Bibles, and you can't believe how many. Some of them, I wanted to see the front page of the first Bible that was authorized by Congress in the 1700s. They had it open to a page, but I wanted to see the copyright because it's called the Aiken Bible. If you can find a copy of that, it's worth like $100,000. But this separation of church and state that somebody made up along the line, Congress actually initiated and authorized the Aiken Bible. And rumor has it that everybody that was elected and served for their state got a copy of those. That was in Washington, D.C. at their office. They got them, and it was said authorized by Congress. We forget some of those things that started our country several hundred years ago, and now we are totally on the opposite end of the spectrum. So it's just amazing what you can learn. It'll take you 2 days at least to see everything at the Museum of the Bible.
Wow. Well, Ben, gosh, I don't know. We could probably go on some more. It's interesting, and some of the things that folks, Ben has a lot to share. Okay, Ben has got some knowledge, and we haven't even talked about your book. But Ben, we're out of time. But thank you for sacrificing talking about your own book to talk about some of the works of others, some of the quirks and hurdles and twists and turns in the authoring path, and your beekeeping. I can't wait, folks. We're fortunate. We're blessed to have an ever expanding schedule of people such as Ben Cooper, who's with us now. He'll be on the first Tuesday of every month. Ben, thanks for taking some time to share with us. That new microphone your son got for you did a great job tonight. And so don't stay up too late because those bees need keeping, and you're the man.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Ben. All right, folks, welcome. Those of you in the chat room who are here at patriotjournalist.com, glad to see you. David Nesta, the screen's kind of far away from me, folks, and I'm using my ocular enhancement device. David, thanks for joining us. If it's your first time here, we extend you a very special PJNet welcome. I know you're finding the PJNet family warm and loving. Doug Carter is with us. If you were here last night, Doug was here. He'll be here once a month. Hazards 4 is here with us. Ben Cooper just joined the conversation. And JD is here. And Lori Hayes, who will be with us tomorrow night talking wild horses, I bet. You bet. Rachel, thanks for stopping in tonight. Go ask Rachel to send you a picture of her business card. Really nice. Okay. Sunbelt Girl and Tammy from Georgia. Folks, we're going to have to quickly exit stage left and prepare the way for Del Didway, who will be coming up at the bottom of the hour. Until then, Sunbelt Girl will keep things rolling for you. Enjoy the chat, and we'll be back live with Del Didway in just a few moments. Don't touch that dial.